The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or Internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
Tonight, pull up a chair or recline on that sofa, whatever. Open your ears, open your mind, and we hope to bring you some information that is new and provocative and will help you think more clearly about the madness that is surrounding most of us on this planet. There are some who have gone into a Zen state and just don't care, and maybe they're the lucky ones, I don't know. Here's a story that you just gotta laugh at this stuff, I guess, or cry. Yahoo News is reporting it. And I think I ran it yesterday. I hate to say president, the alleged president, Barack Obama, promised in an interview broadcast late Monday that his decision to arm Syrian rebels, does not mean the United States is taking sides. Now, this is a quote. Does not mean the United States is taking sides in a religious war, end quote. That's what this creep is calling the Zionist mercenary slaughter of over 100,000 Syrians in that country. Clearly a takeover attempt by the international Zionist bankster cartel headquartered in the city of London. That's where it all traces back. It's all about money and control and greater Israel. Obama went on to say to PBS's Charlie Rose that the NSA revelations by Ed Snowden were just a ruckus. Just a ruckus. No big deal. He said, if you're a U.S. person, it's an odd construct, isn't it? If you're a U.S. person, then NSA is not listening to your phone calls, and it's not targeting your emails unless it's getting an individualized court order, end quote. Right. The lies just keep pouring out. Unbelievable. He went on to say there are two programs that were revealed by Mr. Snowden, allegedly revealed by him since there's a criminal investigation taking place, and they caused all the ruckus, he said to Rose. Just a ruckus. No big deal, folks. No big deal at all. Gerald Celente is with us once a month in his busy schedule, and we always welcome this time greatly and have wonderful conversations. All right, my friend, welcome back. And, it's despicable and getting worse.
Well, you're right. It's despicable and getting worse because you also left out the wonderful new Supreme Court ruling.
I was getting there, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell it, lay it on us. It's important.
Well, you don't have Fifth Amendment rights anymore, the right to remain silent. Now the right to remain silent can mean that you're guilty.
Yeah, absolutely. Fifth Amendment is now equated with essential guilt, folks.
That's right. Yeah. So, this, you get the TrendsJournal. Back
Thank
a
you.
year ago.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you. Spring issue 2012. We had the cover art that was people got very upset about it. It was next train to Auschwitz, all aboard, kiss those calories goodbye.
Fabulous cover.
Remember that one with all of the stock cars, the cars,
cattle cars,
made in USA, the cattle cars,
Yep.
And people with "I Love Bieber," World Wrestling Federation T-shirts, pants hanging down, getting on board. Well, in that issue, we did a story on page 26 called "Big Bro." Without the public really noticing or caring enough to notice, Obama's 2012 had become Orwell's 1984. Big Brother had arrogated to himself full power to do as he pleased. So what? What was the big deal? Does anyone really care? Why should anybody have to know about the NDAA and the NDRP executive order? We go on to pay. Washington was everywhere and affected everything. And we outline in chapter and verse, actually, about what this fellow Snowden has just talked about over a year later.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what the TrendsJournal is famous for. I mean, you're right on it. You've been doing this for 2 decades now.
And, it's right there. I mean, here's a story from U.S. eases rule on use of data on Americans. The Obama administration has moved to relax restrictions on how counterterrorism analysts may retrieve, store, and search information about Americans gathered by government agencies for purposes other than national security threats. The guidelines will lengthen to 5 years from 180 days, the amount of time the center can retain private information about Americans when there is no suspicion that they are tied to terrorism. Intelligence officials, right? I love that line. The guidelines are also expected to result in the center making more copies of entire databases and, quote, data mining them, using complex algorithms to search for patterns that could indicate a threat. Again, remember, this is over a year ago.
Yeah. These aren't just keyword searches, folks. It's way beyond that. Anyway.
Yeah. And we go on to write, and out Orwellian Orwell, whose fictional Big Brother convinced the populace he had to watch them in order to protect the national security, the real-life Holder Obama guidelines for the National Counterterrorism Center permitted the government to, quote, retrieve, store, and search information about Americans for purposes other than national security threats. It's right there.
You had it all.
We wrote about this stuff. Yeah. And you know what? I've come to the conclusion. 2 of them. The first one is that this is perfectly logical in a fascist state. And fascism, of course, and I know people are going to send me emails and saying, no, this isn't what Mussolini said. They're wrong. Mussolini said the merger of state and corporate powers is fascism. And too big to fail is the beginning of the indoctrinated fascist state.
Oh, absolutely.
In the United States. So you're bailing out businesses. And once again, Eric Holder, our Attorney General, he said that the reason he didn't prosecute the too big to jails in the financial sector was fear that it might cause to destabilize the economy, is the words to that effect. So now what we have, Jeff, is the pure understanding here that this isn't really about counterterrorism or intelligence or even watching us. That's only part of it. The other part of it is who is Big Brother. And according to everything that I've read, Big Brother are the military contractors, the ones that are hired to do these jobs. And according to a story in the Financial Times, we're spending $80 billion. Hey, folks out there in Detroit where it's rotting away, East St. Louis, Camden, Trenton, and a city near you, $80 billion on so-called counterterrorism. And there are, check the number, 150,000 private contractors doing the work. So all this really is
150,000 in this country.
Yes.
Wow.
According to the Financial Times article.
Mm-hmm. Let's not leave out, Gerald, excuse me. This is important. Let's not leave out universities on grants from many of these military-industrial complexes to do the real dirty work. They're involved too.
Of course. And the other aspect of this is, for example, when you just look at the one of the companies, I love the name, Booz.
Oh, Booz Allen.
Booz Allen Hamilton, right? Yeah, right. Booz Hamilton. The guy, Mitch McConnell, who's the head of it, the CEO, son of a gun. He was also the National Security Agency head under Bill Slick Willie Clinton from 1992 to 1996.
Round and around they go.
Exactly, the revolving door. The other guy, Clapper. I love his name, man. But he and a picture of him and Dick Cheney is enough for a Marvel comic book special anytime, you know.
Or a series.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the break, Brett. Keep going, Joe.
But anyway, so when you're looking at this is more of a money-making scheme than anything else, just as the military-industrial complex is. It's another scheme for people to get rich off the government.
Yeah.
So when you look and you read about how they pushed for this whole National Security Agency and all this intelligence, on and on and on, it's a money-making scheme. In the meantime, as in any good fascist state, they keep us in line. So that's what's really going on as I see it here.
Shouldn't we say military-industrial congressional complex now?
Well, you see, in the last TrendsJournal, I wrote about it, that it's two groups. There are two mafias. There are the mafia families. One is the military-industrial complex, and the other are the money junkies. And all the politicians are the wise guys. That's all. They're the wise guys for the mafia.
There you go. Perfect place to hang them out. I like that. Yeah.
So they're not a mafia on their own. They're just the lowlifes, They'll just do what they're told. So what we're looking at now, of course, we're talking about Syria. You were talking about. I'd like to read you a quote. Former French Foreign Minister Roland Dumas, during an interview with the French parliamentary TV network LCB, recounted that he was in Britain on matters before the outbreak of violence in Syria. Quote, I met with top British officials who confessed to me that they were preparing something big in Syria, he said. He continued, this was in Britain, not in America. Britain was organizing an invasion of rebels into Syria. Now, think about this. I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready, preparing the day. They're going to school, like high school and college, and how they used to trumpet up how the sun never set on the British Empire, as though it was a good, right? As though it was a nice thing,
Of course, rule
rather
Britannia.
than looking at these brutal imperialists. I mean, the British are among the most violent, brutal sect that ever swept across the continents. The slaughters,
murderous, horrible, murderous bastards. Study the South African Boer War just for 10 minutes and you get the picture.
Yes. I mean, that's where concentration camps were born.
That's right.
In the Boer Wars. And I love it, but they always speak so proper. And they always have, their pinky in their air as they're sipping cups of tea, as they're committing mass murder. Yeah. And when you watch this little chicken hawk, Cameron, shooting off his mouth at the G8 meeting, you can see where this is all going. They can't get over that colonial trip, neither can the English, and now, of course, the Americans are just their cousins. And I've also come up with a new slogan. Remember that old slogan by Calvin Coolidge? The business of America is business. The business of America is now war. The business of China is business. So while America wages war, China is waging business. China has well over $5 trillion in foreign assets. and reserve currencies, that they are buying up the planet from the Bordeaux region in France to talking about building a new Panama Canal-style waterway through Nicaragua, to building dams and infrastructure repair in Costa Rica, Trinidad, Tobago, and again throughout Africa.
All over Africa. Yep. And don't forget at home, they're building their own infrastructure too. Oh.
And we're waging war. And
frittering away our money, our nation's life's blood, our young people. Our infrastructure is shot. It's the antithesis of what you just outlined.
And then I'm thinking about, as you were talking about Obama, and talking about, I like what we have to do in Syria, and how the Syrians, of course, use these deadly, ghastly weapons to. They're claiming they use sarin gas, of course, with less information and less facts than they had, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
Correct.
And Taj to Al-Qaeda, right?
Yep.
There's no proof at all. So then I started thinking, they're screaming and yelling about the United States, about Syria using sarin gas, and you hear Cameron, how despicable this is. And I started thinking about, sarin gas, man. Now, let me get this straight. What did the United States use? Okay, they dropped a couple of atom bombs, napalmed Agent Orange, Vietnam, cluster bombs.
Mm-hmm.
What other kind of bombs? Carpet bombs. How about white phosphorus? That's a little beauty, too, isn't it?
Willie Pete.
Depleted uranium. I forgot about depleted uranium. How can I forget about that one? The hypocrisy that's going on here is beyond anything I've ever can imagine, and it just never stops.
Really important points, every one of them. The DU especially. We have covered Iraq in DU, Libya, Afghanistan, and that stuff doesn't stay put. It moves, okay? And these are nuclear weapons, depleted uranium rounds. Make no mistake about it. We are fighting with nuclear weapons in these countries. And it is beyond, it should be before the International Criminal Court, of course. Back home here, the only national security threats I see are Holder, Obama, AIPAC, the Congress, the Supreme Court. Those are national security threats. And the American public, you had a great line when you were quoting from the TrendsJournal of last year about the Congress. The American public sent back to D.C. in the last election 96% of the criminal scum that is still sitting there ensconced in their chairs. And another point about the Brits and their ruthless, malicious slaughtering of humanity, whether it be India, South Africa, or anywhere they've gone. Look what they did in China.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. The lovely Opium War. How can I forget that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And don't forget that the Brits are sitting on all of this corruption, all this depravity, and it is all underpinned with a subculture of pedophilia of little boys and little girls. And don't you ever forget it. They are the most depraved culture of all.
I am so disgusted. Oh, you remember when that guy cut up that soldier and he read why he did it?
Yep.
Oh, my God, a British soldier was killed. Now, how many tens of thousands British soldiers are occupying and killing in Afghanistan and Iraq?
Right.
How many? Oh no, we have the right to be there. Because don't you know who we are? Oh, we were there in the 19th century, and we're back in the 21st century. I mean, who the hell do these people think they are? And all these countries calling it terrorism. How about calling it getting even?
And you got that right. The score will never be settled.
No.
It'll never be even.
Then the other one is, now we're hearing Obama, now the United States, it's probably up to about 700 million to $1 billion now of money that's gone to the so-called rebels in Syria. You know, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, Al Capone. You know, they're all the same. You know,
criminal killers from 29 different countries.
That's so. So anyway, now check it out. Right, we're going back now. This is the same military-industrial complex and governmental sociopaths who brought us the Vietnam, Afghan, Iraq, and Libya war. And now they're at it again. And never mind that all of their, quote, foreign entanglements were monumental failures that ended in abject failure and tragic results. Now they're at it again. I mean, they're 0 for 4. Now they're going to go 0 for 5.
Well, they got the Iraqi oil. There's more oil in Iraq than any other Middle East country, so they got that. There's one pipeline that goes right directly to Israel, so they're looting Iraq. That was.
But I'm just saying, well, I mean, look what's going on. Iraq is destroyed.
It's totally destroyed.
And now, so here's a trend forecast that you could take to the bank. If these madmen and madwomen insist upon waging war against the Syrian government, we are saying it will mark the beginning of World War III. And you don't have to be a trend forecaster or Einstein to predict how that one will eventually end. And you know that quote from Einstein, I do not know how the Third World War will be fought, but I can tell you what they will use in the fourth, rocks.
That's a great quote. I hadn't heard that for a while. That's a great quote.
And that is what people should understand. No more to war. The losers are taking us to another losing battle, and this one we may all lose our lives. Just look at what's going on in the Middle East. Egypt is shot. It's gone. Iraq is a mess. Afghanistan is totally destroyed and on the brink of another violent outbreak that's going to continue to spread. Pakistan, all of those drone killings, all of the support that the United States has put in there to destabilize the region is working perfectly. A new president was just elected, and the violence is increasing at proportions not seen in recent years.
Yep. All right, we got to pause here just for a minute. The issue about Syria that is even remotely hopeful is Russia and Putin. The lawmakers here, how can we call these people lawmakers? The scum in Capitol Hill is pressing the felon in the White House to implement a no-fly zone over Syria. Now, they're all being pushed to do this by their AIPAC masters. Don't make any mistake about that. Putin and Russia says it will not allow a Syria no-fly zone to be established. Now, I hope that Putin flies a squadron or two of MiG-29s tonight into Syria and says, "Niet, try it, and we'll shoot you down." I hope he begins to transport S-300s immediately to Syria and put them in there with Russian crews. This has got to stop. If the Russians turn tail and slink away, it's over. This is the big issue. It's a bigger issue than Syria, whether or not Russia will stand up and fight this Western fascist Zionist juggernaut. And we will see soon enough. We'll be right back with Gerald Celente, Trends Research, in just a minute. Gerald, what do your folks tell you about Russia and its resolve? If they allow Syria to be balkanized by this outrage, they're really going to have little buffer. Iran will obviously be targeted next. We know the same old story. They've been planning to take Iran out for 15 years now, they being the greater Israel Zionist banksters in the area, and in the city of London, of course. That little area in London that nobody knows about. It's a 2-square-mile sovereign nation in the middle of London, England, which does not answer to the laws of Great Britain. They're not applicable. It's kind of like Monaco, or Monaco, however you want to pronounce it. It's a strange situation that people just don't get. And from that little 2-square-mile enclave, literally spins out tentacles that envelop the world and have inserted into every country the Rothschild central banking template. Okay? Every country has one except 3. And those 3 again are Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. Now, Libya didn't have one. Iraq didn't have one, and look what happened to them. We have one over here. The Rothschild Central Reserve Banking template is the Federal Reserve. The first announcement made by, and I've said this before, the so-called rebels, again imported mercenary killers, in Libya when they captured Benghazi, the first announcement they made was that the new Central Bank of Libya was open for business. All right? This is all about money and control. Forget politics. You all remember Meyer Amschel Rothschild's famous quote about, I don't care who runs for office, just give me the right or the ability to control the money of a nation and elect whoever you want. And that tells you the story. Remember the last century, Bernard Baruch, one of the most wealthy Jewish men of the century, owned Winston Churchill's drunken butt 2 times, 3 times over. They were both on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in 1929 when the crash occurred, engineered every step of the way. So this is all about money. All right? Al and Tipper Gore, their daughter, Jacob Schiff, one of the other most wealthy, powerful Jewish businessmen of the last century, his grandson married Al Gore's daughter. It's all in the family. This is all a true conspiracy. And so for anybody who carps about conspiracy theorists, no, we are conspiracy researchers, because the world is run by conspiracy and always has been.
Well, I don't think it's conspiracy. I think it's right out in the open.
Well, it is a conspiracy in the open, for sure.
It's a takeover.
Yeah.
And you just have to look at every level of life. I've come up with a new name for America, Slavelandia.
That works.
That's what people are. I mean, this is all graduation season. Just ended for colleges. Oh,
yeah,
great! Yeah. Now, what are they going to do? Okay, you're going to get a job at Walmart. How about Staples?
To pay off your $100,000 student loan.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorite courses, by the way. I used to make fun of anthropology, and I mean, these are wonderful things to have if you're very rich, come from a very rich family, you have nothing else to do with your life because you're not going to get a job in this field, and you just want to study it for the scholarly aspect of it, which is great if you could afford it, but it's not going to buy you a job. So they got all these worthless, I call them degrees in worthlessness. How about foreign relations or
sociology?
So a psych major. How about that one?
Art history.
Yeah, art history. So now my new favorite though is women's studies.
Oh, perfect.
That's a great one. And so I think it's sexist to have women's studies. I want to see men's studies. How come there are no men's studies?
That's not PC. Sorry.
No. Sorry. Look, if there's women's studies, there has to be men's studies.
Well, they had black studies, but they didn't have white studies.
And the other one that, I always hear this, if only the women were in charge, lest we forget Hitlery and Margaret Thatcher, and, you go down and listen to Indira Gandhi, and right. One after another, Gillard over there in Australia. Wonderful, real stand-up women, And let's not forget Susan Rice and Samantha Powers in the U.S. offices, our new, what is she, NSA? Not NSA. What did they appoint her to? Yeah, I think it was anyway, and she was before that. She was Susan Rice was with the United Nations, our representative there, and Samantha Powers was something with the NSA. And these are the women, along with Hillary Clinton, that pushed for the Libyan war.
Well, and
just for the record.
Well, Condoleezza Rice. Most of them are lesbians, of course.
But anyway, these, I mean, if only the women were in charge line. So now my favorite one is, now the women could serve as Navy SEALs and Rangers. So now they could become really, really violent, right? And they could go all out. So what happened to this thing about if only the women were in charge? So now they got the positions also of high killing power. But anyway, going back to Russia, what you were talking about.
Susan Rice, National Security Advisor. Go ahead.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, NSA, right. Going back to what you were saying about Russia. Hey, the difference is, and you pointed it out, Russia has nuclear weapons. I mean, thermonuclear weapons. And nobody's going to screw around with Russia. There's no. I mean, you go back in history, whether it was Napoleon, Hitler, or anybody. You're not going to take out Russia. People get it in their heads. These are the Russians. How many did they lose in the Battle of Leningrad, Stalingrad?
Lots.
About 20, 30 million Russians died in World War II.
Yeah, they just kept coming.
Yep.
They didn't stop.
They're not going anywhere. They're not.
No.
So nobody's going to intimidate Putin, particularly these little boys like Cameron and Hollande and Obama.
The little punks, little tweaks.
They're not intimidating Putin. So this is why I'm saying that Syria could turn into World War III.
You bet.
The battle lines are being drawn. And I mentioned the destabilization from Pakistan, Egypt, Tunisia, Yemen, Bahrain. Now it's moving into Lebanon. And then, of course, there's Israel. I saw a movie you mentioned about the Boer War. Now we come back. We can.
No, well, go ahead. Through it. Right. Thanks.
I went to a documentary. It was called something Apartheid. And what happened was after the Boer War, you mentioned the brutality that the
against
British,
white Christian men, women, and children.
Yeah. So that the Boers went into South Africa after that, and they went there with a religious zeal that God had given them that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we saw apartheid in all its ugliness. And the author of this film made the comparison between apartheid in South Africa and apartheid in Israel. And it was brilliantly done.
Uh-huh.
And just as the Ashkenazi, the European Jews went into Israel, uh-huh, as with the Zionists, this was their land to save them from the slaughterers. The same thing with the Boers. And of course, we know about the atrocities that were committed by the Boers against the South Africans. And again, making the parallel of showing how South Africa was all cut up into the black areas, and just now as Israel is all cut up with all of these Palestinian they're all separated by these walls.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
nobody's saying anything about it.
No. It's like it's happening in Mars. It's not on this planet. The outcome of this movie was right at the very end, and I totally agree with the concept. For not a two-nation, two-state solution, but a one-state solution. There should be no Gaza, no West Bank. Nothing should be broken up. It should all be incorporated under one state.
Sure, always should have been.
So I agree with that, because if Israel continues to call itself the only democracy in the Middle East, then turn it into a democracy. Simple as that. If it's not going to be called a democracy, then just call it, the Israeli state. And no one else is welcome there to have equal rights. So call it what it is, or call it what it should be.
The apartheid state of Israel, with its Israeli-only roads, or this road for Arabs, the exclusions of various peoples from all kinds of different positions in the country.
So then the argument against it from the Zionist force is, well, in so many years from now, then the Arabs will be a majority. Well, okay, so how about right now? South Africa, the blacks are a majority, but they're not killing each other anymore. For whatever it is, but they're not at each other's throats. And they're a majority, and there's more freedom now. They don't have this going on anymore. This internal hatred of each other. So to me, this was an eye opener.
Interesting film. Yeah, good. There's some good films out there.
Yeah, to me that I haven't heard this before.
No.
From maybe a lot of people have, but I haven't.
Well, and
to make it a one-state solution.
Yeah, sure. Well, they're increasing their West Bank building, their East Jerusalem building. Those controllers of the Zionist apartheid state of Israel, do not want a one-state solution, will not accept it. They're going to build their way into utter hegemony over the Palestinian people, what's left of them, and most of them live in the world's largest outdoor prison right now. They want these people to scatter. They want a diaspora. They want to kick them out. They want to force them out into Jordan, into Lebanon, into northern Egypt, whatever. The idea is to cleanse greater Israel to the extent that there is no significant minority representation of other peoples. That's what's going on. It's going on as plain as day.
Well, I know that's what's going on. So what I'm saying is that to me that was a good solution.
A wonderful solution.
The one-state solution.
Well, of course.
It's even-handed to me.
Absolutely. Yep. Completely concur. It's interesting. The original projected homeland for the Jews, the first choice was not Palestine. They even looked at Galveston, Texas. And which was it, Nigeria? It was one of the countries in Africa.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, right.
The Congo.
Yeah.
Any of that. And they also considered Madagascar at one point. And they've been surveying and control most of Patagonia, southern Patagonia right now. They have tremendous holdings down there. That's their kind of their go-to place in a hurry. They could relocate to Patagonia. So they've got... Yeah, it's true. I've done stories on this from folks down in Argentina. They've been surveying Argentina for a long time. That's their target.
Well, it's a smart place to go, actually, because if there's nuclear blowouts in the Western Hemisphere, you're furthest away from it.
No, they got planes on standby now to fly the elite right down there, and it's all set and waiting for them. Nobody knows about it because it doesn't make the Zionist media, and most of the media is Zionist-friendly or Zionist-owned and operated, so that's the way it works.
On the economic note, tomorrow's a big day because America's public enemy number one, Osama Ben Bernanke, the man that has destroyed the dollar and the nation with his quantitative easing.
I wonder how much a year he spends on having that beard professionally trimmed, huh?
Yeah. They're going to announce whether or not they're going to taper off their quantitative easing, which, of course, is the other word is stimulus, but the real word is printing cheap money to bail out their buddies at the banks.
Yep.
Now, we're coming out with a major mid-year report economic trend forecast in the next TrendsJournal, the summer edition, and also we're going to be revamping it. Very great fashion to a whole new look and style.
Oh, the publication?
Yeah, we're really going to. Right now it's about it's 40 pages of advertising free.
No ads, folks.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do is make it a bit more reader friendly. Less people seem to be wanting to go through all that. So we're going to make it so it's more pleasing, with more photos, more illustrations, more artwork. And really making it a magazine like nothing has ever been seen before. But anyway, we're coming out in the meantime with our mid-year report on the economy. So here's it in a nutshell. Of course, it'll be much more extensive than this. we're seeing a rise in interest rates already. You know, as you know, I bought historic buildings here in Colonial Kingston, New York.
Mm-hmm.
1750s was the first one I bought, 1774 and 1763. The first building I bought back last June, I got a commercial loan at 3.5%, locked in for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That loan now is up to 4% if you were to get that same loan today.
Mm-hmm.
So mortgage rates are going up. This is solely an interest rate recovery. Historic low interest rates are the only thing that are spurring the economy in the United States, plus all of that quantitative easing, which is buying up, of course, government bonds and auction rate securities, tune of $85 billion a month by the Federal Reserve.
Mm-hmm.
The banks, the central banks have dumped in over $12 trillion. That's the lowest end number that I saw, on up to 12 to 20 trillion, depending on whose numbers you look at, to re-stimulate the economy. So here's what's going on as we speak. What are there? Over 100,000 people took to the streets in Brazil.
Uh-huh.
How many in Bulgaria yesterday? Where's Bulgaria? I didn't know there was a Bulgaria. Bulgaria never makes the news. People now in Turkey, people in Spain and Greece, people throughout the world are taking to the streets in unprecedented masses. You know my saying.
Yeah.
When people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. You get a couple of 100,000, a couple of million people taking to the streets, the government can have all the troops they want, they can have all the weapons they want, they're not going to be able to stop it. Period. Paragraph. They could have FEMA camps, they could have anything that they want. You start getting those numbers out to the streets, and they don't leave, you have problems on your hand. I don't care what government you are.
No, that day won't come too soon here.
Do you know in China, that's their greatest fear of the people?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Because what do they have? 1.2 billion of them?
Mm-hmm.
And if they start losing control of them, there's no army in the world that can handle that. And then it gets to the point, when do the soldiers stop killing their neighbors and their families?
Well,
so that becomes a breaking point as well.
Look at the Civil War here. When do you stop shooting your cousins and your aunts and uncles and all the rest of it? It's
well, again,
crazy.
but now imagine this going on in cities throughout the world.
Mm-hmm. I wish it would go on here. You're right.
But it's very important to watch because, as you know from my past trend economic forecasts,
mm-hmm.
I've said the same thing over and over again, that there won't be any recovery. This is merely a cover-up. When they stop the money printing schemes, stop the low interest rate recovery Ponzi scheme,
exactly,
the thing collapses. Now, as I've said often, if America and Europe don't buy, the Chinese don't manufacture. If the Chinese and the Indonesians, the Vietnamese and the Bangladeshis don't manufacture, the Canadians, the Australians, the Chileans, the Bolivians, the Brazilians, they don't export their raw materials. Brings us back to, hey, what's going on in Brazil right now? They're rioting in the streets. How come? Because they're tired of all the corruption. They're tired of living in poverty. They're tired of being overtaxed and underserviced. They're tired of their lives being on the edge all the time. So this is very important to watch. Now it goes back, because in trend forecasting, all things are connected. It goes back to how we almost began this conversation. Syria. When all else fails, they take you to war. You want to get your mind off the economic problems? How about a nice bloody war? Couple of terrorist attacks, false flag are real.
We're overdue, historically, for exactly that. We are literally moments away, potentially, from an open, wide open Mideast war. And where it could go from there, anywhere.
Yeah, again, it goes to me, As I said, you don't have to be a trend forecaster or Albert Einstein to figure it out. This is look, Jeff, we've heard it forever. Generals are always fighting the last war. You think they're going to need all these tanks and these F-35s? No. These are wars of weapons of mass destruction. I've been writing about these for years. You know, boom goes London, boom Paris, you know, that old song. And a dirty bomb here, biological warfare there, a suitcase-sized nuke over here, one after another. It's complete chaos. They closed down 100 square miles of Boston to get a 19-year-old kid. Could you imagine what would happen if there's a major strike in a major city, in major countries around the world? The economies go on crash.
Right now. You're right. Totally right. I call this place Camp Usury. That's my name for America now.
Well, again, it's up to the human spirit to change the course.
Do we have that spirit left here?
Well, you know, it's up to each individual. I have it, only speaking for myself.
No, I'm with you.
I want to leave this. I want to leave this earth on a high note. That I was true to my word and true to who I am, and said I was. And to me, you know, that hell is taking that last breath and knowing that you lied to yourself and you weren't the person who you said you were or could have been. So all I'm saying is everybody has it within themselves to reach the greatest heights, and this is the time for that. And in doing so, to consider getting in shape physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And we can restore America. This country was never perfect. Nothing is. No one is. And you know, we had committed a lot of atrocities and did a lot of things that we shouldn't be we were not proud of, and including my own life. I mean, I'm not the same guy I was all my life, you know. But you grow, but you take the best of the past and you retrofit it for the future, and that's what a renaissance is. So I want to see a restoration of America. I want to see greatness again. I want to see quality. I want to see laws put back into place, like the Glass-Steagall Act, the Robinson-Patman Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, the Clayton Antitrust Act, so that people can become entrepreneurs again. The monopolies that they have over us in retail, in pharmaceuticals. There used to be a quaint little thing when I was a kid. They had drugstores, and the local pharmacist was my neighbor, or the hardware store, where the guy was down the block, or the woman that owned the dress shop. They're all gone. Now they're all packing bags at Home Goods, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Staples. So we can restore America by bringing it back to the fundamentals. And one of them is no foreign entanglements, no more to war. Let's abide by what the Founding Fathers, and I know people are going to write to me, yeah, the Founding Fathers had slaves, yeah. I don't want to hear it. You know, they had a lot of great things as well.
No, leave me out of it too, thanks. Sick of that.
Yep.
All right. As you see it right now, in a nutshell, is Russia going to stand up and say,
Yep.
No?
Yep, I do. Yep. And as I said, nobody's going to push Russia around.
I'm with you.
And remember the TrendsJournal, and TrendsJournal.com. And we make it available to everyone. There's a discount request page because we know people are having a difficult time. And you'll surely read history before it happens.
Always. TrendsResearch.com as well. Thank you, Gerald.